Hey, everybody, welcome to our year-end chat with our correspondents here at Inside MusiCast. And first of all, I want to acknowledge Rick Such, my podcasting partner. Rick, yep, wave there. And we're sort of waiting for other correspondents to sort of pipe in, but we do want to welcome Scott Gross from Florida, Don Breithaupt, who now lives in Toronto, Loretta Sassaman in Seattle, and all the way awake right now, I believe it's around almost 11 o'clock p.m. is Arnaud Leger in Paris. How was everybody?
Good.
Good. All right. Don, let's talk with you a little bit. We know we're going to make this sort of brief with everybody, but now that the year's over, you've had a busy year. You've launched a new project with Monkey House. It's a wonderful project, but you've had a lot of other things going on. How's the year ended for you? Is it on track?
Yeah, I mean, all I was hoping for the end of this year is that the record got out there into the world and that people liked it, and that's I'm glad to say exactly what happened there. I mean, the big mid-year thing was I moved after a decade in LA. I moved back to Toronto, and basically, my wife and I packed up everything we could fit in our van and drove back here and just kind of started from scratch. And I have to say we were welcomed back very, very nicely by everybody here in our sort of community of friends and family, but also the music community. And so I've been actually busier than I've been in a while. The last little while, on top of which I'm doing my master's in composition. I'll become a university student again.
Wow. So Don, let's finish up a little bit. I want to mention one thing that right now we're finishing up our year-end album picks of the year, which was a really, really challenging thing because we do this every single year. All of our correspondents, and we do too, select a favorite album of ours, which is so tough to do. Don, tell us about your pick, because this one came out of left field for me.
Oh, well, I guess you're not a longtime Lewis Cole guy.
I'm not.
But I have to say that he's among the many artists who are now sort of core music artists for me that my kids have gotten me into. My older son Miles is a drummer, and he first became aware of Lewis Cole because he's a drummer from USC, and but then it became clear to me he's a lot more than just that. He's a songwriter, composer, record producer. Multi-instrumentalist, vocalist, makes his own videos, and he's really great. I mean, he's sort of got kind of Brian Wilson / Harry Nilsson songwriting chops when he wants to, but the rest of the time he just does this hard grooving, almost snarky puppyish kind of stuff. So for me, it was also a tough year, and I had Corey Henry and a bunch of other stuff sort of on the short list. But I thought, just in terms of awareness raising, it'd be fun to pick Lewis Cole, just because I thought maybe some people would know about him yet.
You know what I've always liked about the picks of the correspondents every single year, we've been doing this for quite a long time now, is that every year there's something new and fresh that comes out of left field. And we get thanked a lot on Facebook for, wow, I never knew this. I mean, it was just like last year's pick with Scott Gross. You chose Anastasia Lynn, is that correct?
Yeah.
And I thank you for letting me get to know her music. That's just one little gem, but I love how this always operates. Rick, do you want to say something about that?
No. No, I loved Anastasia's album last year.
So much for your color, man.
I know, exactly.
We had her as our, thanks to Scott and connecting us to, through Ken Stacy, we got Anastasia and Ken on the show last year, or it was our first show of 2022 anyway. And no, she's wonderful. I've listened to that album quite a bit, and I considered that one as one of my album picks of the year also. Really great album.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of Lewis Cole, George Giz, our buddy George Giz, who managed Mr. and Pages and everything, he reached out to me about Lewis Cole a long time ago.
Wow.
Hip and needed to him. He said, you got to get hip to this guy because he's doing stuff that a lot of kids aren't doing these days.
Mhm.
So yeah, no, great pick, Don. Really.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I've just gotten the signal, so I bid you all happy Christmas and good night.
Merry
Yeah.
Christmas.
Gotta
Merry
run.
Christmas.
Don,
Happy
thanks for
holidays,
Merry
Don.
Christmas to
thanks
you.
for everything you bring to Inside MusiCast and all the efforts you've given us over the years. We really appreciate it, and of course we love you.
Always my pleasure, guys. Look forward to lots more.
All right.
Alrighty.
Safe travels. Bye-bye.
All right, see you
Say
later.
hi, Don.
Hey,
I'd like
Eddie,
to
I want to
move-
switch. I want to go over and talk to Arnaud, who's
I know.
Where,
Yeah.
where is Mick? Where is Mick?
Miguel,
Yeah, I don't know.
I sent him a message. He was supposed to be here, but maybe he had the time mixed up.
He's
but,
probably listening to some Pages music.
Yes. Pages always takes the priority, right, Arnaud?
Yeah.
I think he's probably reorganizing and recataloging all of his CDs. He does that like once a
Yeah.
week, and it takes him about 40 or 50 hours. Each.
So Arnaud, tell us how's the music life been for 2020 for you? Wrap it up for us. How ending the year?
I don't have discovered so many new artists this year. I've chosen radio generation radio,
Mhm.
as you have seen, because I'm still nostalgic of this period of time of music.
Me too.
Yeah, so Chicago, Toto, Rascal Flatts. I'm probably the only one in France who listened to Rascal Flatts, but I
Well,
like
Arnaud,
those guys. So
You would have loved Eddie and I back in 2009. We went to the Musicians Hall of Fame induction ceremony when the members of Toto were inducted, and the band that introduced them that night were the members of Rascal Flatts. And I don't know if you've seen videos of this that are floating around YouTube, but there's a performance with Rascal Flatts playing with Toto. So
yeah,
you
yeah,
probably love that.
I've seen that. Yeah. But I've discovered Claudia Campagnol
Yeah.
on your pages.
Michael's become very close to her, and he wrote the liner notes to her album she just dropped. So
And she's great. The new album is fantastic.
yeah, it's a strong album. Both her albums, very, very strong. People who haven't heard those.
I am not sure when she's dancing salsa on Facebook, but her thinking is very cool.
Yeah, I mean, if you have to look at her, you just do. But the music's good too.
Yeah.
No. We've been in touch with Claudia, and I know that we're on deck. She's on deck with us to talk about the new album in late January. So we'll be able to let the dust settle a little bit and talk a little bit about what she's really working on. Because I tell you, this last album is it's fantastic album. It
Yeah.
really is good.
The first one is great. Is awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, I just wanted to let you know that I just got a message from Mikhail, and he's sorry he can't be here, but he has the flu, and he's in bed.
Oh no.
So it's that time of the year. It seems like so many people are getting ill.
Yeah. So Arnaud, tell us a little bit about. Have you seen any shows, any music there? What do you see the bands coming around there that are in the Inside MusiCast genre into Paris? Have you seen European tours other than Toto?
No, in that year it was very. I went just to see Richard Marx and Peter Frampton.
Oh, Peter
The
Frampton.
only two shows this year.
Yeah.
That was Peter Frampton's last shows. I mean, he's done now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, he's done it. It was very emotional because it's the last tour, the real
very
last tour.
emotional. Yeah, he had to do those last shows seated because he's just not confident enough standing anymore, you know, with his condition. God bless him. I mean, to still, you know, he lost 2 years of doing farewell shows because of the pandemic when he was still stronger. And unfortunately, you know, his health situation continues to progress. And I know they taped one of the shows for PBS. So at least one of those farewell shows now has been captured. And my son and I saw that farewell concert tour before the pandemic, and it was just glorious. It was incredible. I mean, the feeling, you know, that he when you talk about an artist who leaves everything on the stage, he really did at that show and every one of those final shows, because him and the band, they all knew the weight of it and what it meant. And this really was the final chance everyone was going to get to be able to see him play live. And it was unbelievable. Really, really special.
I had texted Gordon Kennedy, who was a past IMC guest of ours, who has been a longtime writing partner with Peter. And when I got word that he was on this leg of the tour, finishing it all up, and I asked if he was going to be on it, and he says, no, not at all. Somebody else. He was busy recording and that type of thing, and could not make the gigs. But whoever did, you guys are really lucky, Scott, and your boys to see that once in a lifetime type of show, because he's not going to be doing this.
Yeah, physically he's not going to be able to. But what is great is, you know, he has his own recording studio, and him and his band, they go in and they're just cranking out albums while he can still play. And he says, I can still play really great. I'm just not super confident standing anymore. He's recording as much as he can just to have albums and albums to continue to release even after he's not able to play anymore.
Yeah. That's good insight. Hey, Kim, talking about touring, I mean, you bring so much to the table for Inside MusiCast, our Florida correspondent, but you see both sides. You see the you're not only a fan of music, but you're on the business side. Now that, let's just say that the artists are crawling out into the shows and gigs. What are you seeing this year in 2022, and how did it end up from a business perspective for you? What's the climate out there in shows?
Oh, wow. I mean, you know, I think that COVID really changed a lot, changed everything. I think a lot of people, you know, came out of COVID in this big mad rush because we were down for 2 years or whatever it was. And I'm not so sure it's found its place yet, but it's gonna find its place, but it's gonna be different than it ever was. It's never gonna be back the same. You know, I'm finding due to like a lot of the inflations and a lot of the, you know, price raising of things, that it's hard to get artists to fly and to stay in hotels. Like everything's exasperated financially. So it's everything's gone up, you know, so it's been a little rough getting it to make sense. As far as concert goers, and as you know, I think everyone knows, you try to go to see any, you know, major artist at a Hard Rock or something like that, and the tickets are incredibly expensive. Like we've never. I went today to try to pull 2 tickets to see Anita Baker, you know, grab them as a Christmas gift, and the cheapest ticket was like $1,000.
Oh,
I can't understand, and it's almost sold out. You know, there's seats left, but I don't know who is able. I'd like, you know, I mean, it's a 7,000 seat venue, so obviously there's 7,000 people willing to do that. But I think that the industry, I don't think that that's good for us, because there's a lot of people that can't afford to come out and enjoy the music, you know, because one side's making it, and at the same time, we're not making more money on one side, but yet we're looking for it on the other, and it's kind of lopsided. Along with that, I see a lot of as we just spoke about Peter Frampton, a lot of the artists that I personally am in the business for and to promote, to manage and work with from the 70s, 60s, 70s, you know, they're going, it's starting to die out, that whole era, and it makes me very sad. I'm not sure how long I'm going to continue once, you know, some of the people that I work with stop working. There's a lot of great new artists, but again, it's not the same. For me, it's not the same because it's not, you know, where my heart was. But You know, everybody's out trying to create their own band, create their own scenario, because no bands are staying together. I see a lot of that, and I see a lot more of the tribute, obviously, world. Everyone's, you know, there's a million tribute bands for every band that's out there, and that's creating some chaos as well, because I have produced a show, as you know, probably, with Bill Champlin and Keith Allen and Jeff Coffey formerly of Chicago, and John Paris of Earth, Wind and Fire. And I'm struggling just getting these guys into some of the theaters that they should be in, because there's a lot of the tributes that are there. And the theaters are like, hey, we can't do this on top of our tribute. So here these guys are that I can't, it's hard for me to get a spot. And so that's another problem. You know, but on a flip side, good note, there is a lot of people still recording and putting out some good music, and, you know, shows are still there to some degree.
Yeah, those high ticket prices are in some ways very alienating, and it really sort of separates sometimes the real fans from being able to have the opportunity to see their favorite band, because the ticket prices are just out of reach for a lot of people.
Yeah,
It's
and that's
unfortunate.
kind of
There's going to have to be a balance at some point. The pendulum's going to have to swing the other way at some point.
there has to be, and it's ticket hubs, you know. I mean, that's why I do what I do. I keep it and a little bit more of an intimate, even if it's 1,000 seats. But everybody says to me, you're not charging enough. You need to upcharge your tickets, and I just don't choose to do that. And if I can do it, then that's telling you that, you know, everyone else could do it too. It's just simply a gouging scenario in the ticket world, and it just stinks.
Well, let me go ahead and jump in here and just say, thank God for Luke and Toto, because they're putting together a show with, as we all know, the ultimate musicianship, but it's still an affordable show. I got tickets to see them this coming March in Cleveland, Ohio, and I'm able to take my son to see them. We got fifth row tickets. I think the tickets were around $100 a piece. And that also gives us a chance the next day to go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which was the only other reason I wanted to go to Cleveland, Ohio. Nothing against Cleveland, but for me, that's what I wanted to do. But yeah, still very affordable.
That is fair. And I just grabbed a couple tickets for Gino Vanelli, too, that were anywhere from $37 to $75. And
I wish he'd come back to Seattle. He's only been here like once in the last 15 years.
He doesn't live
and he lives right near us.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hi, Loretta. How are things in the Pacific Northwest?
Forgive me. I just had surgery, so I'm missing a tooth.
I didn't miss anything.
It would be nice if we had, you know, I don't know if anybody knows this, but, you know, I have shows in my backyard, Lowe's backyard. And I had Kiki Epson this summer. I had a wonderful young guy who plays a 15-string Chapman stick, made just for him, custom. It's called a kubo in Japanese, which translates to aircraft carrier. This thing is amazing. And the gentleman, his name is Kai Kurosawa, and we met at NAMM when we were there just in June. Amazing musician. And then I had a blues legend, John Primer, in our backyard, which Chicago blues, that was amazing. But, you know, like what Kim was saying, you know, what music has, what the pandemic has done. You know, people want to get out, but they're still kind of afraid to get out. And, you know, I'm hoping that next summer when I have my shows, you know, that it'll be a lot better. You know, people, and they were saying the same thing. People were saying the same thing about charging more. I don't want to do that because then I don't think people would want to come. But, you know, who knows? I'd love to have Elliot Lewis come back. He always loves to come back. But, you know, we are still kind of lacking in the way of music. We just recently had the wonderful, incomparable Simon Phillips. And I told him when I saw him, we really need you to come back because we need this style of music here in Seattle. And it was the most stimulating, mesmerizing show I had been to in a very long time. So amazing. The musicians were incredible. And I even got a shout out video that my husband has been working on editing for Inside MusiCast. And then I talked to him for a few minutes about one of the first albums he did early in his career. Well, not early, in the 80s with Rodney Franklin, and Skydance. If you haven't heard it, it's amazing. And I can't believe he started telling me something about that session. I said, hold on, let me get my phone. And I started recording. It was absolutely amazing. Such a nice man. But, Seattle still needs more of a music scene. We have some of our favorite venues starting to close. In fact, on the West Coast side, some great venues in Los Angeles are going to be closing. What was it? I want to say Michael Feinstein's Vitello's, is that what it's called? Where Kiki has played and some others. It's closing January 1st. And that's been a staple for a number of years. And so I don't know the reason for it closing, but a lot of these really wonderful small venues are going away. We need to really do something about. I wish I had a club. It'd be so much fun. A lot of work. I would need to hook up with Kim and have her help me, but we're just really in dire need of more music venues here on the West Coast side.
Interesting.
Yeah, something comes to mind when I think of the shows in this next year. If anyone who's listening out there gets the chance to see one of their wish or bucket list artists, do it soon. Like Kim and the guys have mentioned that there people are getting older, and to maintain the momentum of generating West Coast AOR music and the classic rock and that type of it's going away. And I think it's sad to say that very soon we'll have CDs and vinyl albums that are memories of the days gone by.
Right.
But what brings me to another point. This year we've had an awful lot of a big surge, and I know that Arnaud, you're in Europe, so you're seeing a resurgence, just that we are, of European music and artists in the West Coast genre. For instance, let's see now, Miles, Amer. That's one album that was pure West Coast AOR. We've got Young Gun, Silver Fox generating another wonderful album this year. We have Uli Barud. He's continuing that vibe of. Tell us, who else did we see coming out of the woodworks that are still generating this type of vibe for West Coast? Scott, do you have a thought on that?
Yeah, there's this guy that kind of came out of nowhere this year named Dave Page, who this nice little EP.
What's his name?
I mean, I was so blown away by Dave's EP. I mean, there's not many albums that leave you wanting more, and his definitely did. I mean, I was bowled by the quality of it. And at this point, I'm just so appreciative of any artist who are still taking the time to produce albums, because we all know they're pretty much lost leaders. Nobody's really making any big money from recorded music, and they're purely putting it out just for the passion.
There's no labels. There's no more record labels,
Right.
Yeah, there's just EMG, they're ones that'll take someone's project, and then if it's a big enough name and they think they can make a couple of nickels, they'll release it. But that's happening fewer and fewer times now.
And it's still all about the live performance. It's all about live. You have to be performing and touring live to make it anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, what you were saying, Scott, about David making music for passion. Corey Henry, he was my Inside MusiCast pick of the year. Man, freaking great album. His family raised him right. But you know what? He has made an announcement that he is quitting the music industry, that he's no longer going to be making music for sport, but only for fun. So I don't know what that translates to, but man, I'm so bummed that I never got to see him live. I really would love to see him, because he's so energetic. He's got that old school style down. I don't know if you've had a chance to listen
Oh, sure.
to it. It's amazing.
He's an old soul in a young
Mhm.
man's body. I saw him back when he was still touring with Snarky Puppy, and he was awe-inspiring every night. Every solo, everything he did. But everybody in those bands, Michael League, he just
Mhm.
has the eye and the ear for these special people, and he gets them to, that's almost like their training ground. He
Right.
takes them all over the world. None of them are getting rich doing it, but they play all over the world to these appreciative crowds who are really into real musicians and musicianship. And that crew, they get it done every night. It's always and it's always through the feel and the vibe of the room.
Yeah.
They've
Well,
released
and
box
I
sets of many different concerts, because there is a marked difference, in the energy behind the
Mhm.
songs based on the vibe of the room and what the audience is giving back, and and just how the guys are feeling any night, because it is such a free flowing
Mhm.
deal with those guys. So yeah.
And it isn't like, like what you're saying about the old school. I mean, I want to really go back for a moment and just give huge props to Judith Owen for her latest album of taking the music of the 1940s and doing some incredible work with it. I don't know if you've had a chance to listen to that album, but she does, gosh, why can't I remember the name of it? But one of my favorite songs from the Danny Kaye movie, Up in Arms. Oh, I can't remember it, but it's so amazing. The album is so well done. She's just an incredible musician, and the way she looks in the videos, I mean, so classy.
Oh yeah, no, she's really good. The last NAMM show I went to, which was 2020. She was there, and Lee Sklar was playing with her, and
Mhm.
she just had that show that I was at, on the NAMM floor. Everybody was just enraptured in her performances and everything. She's a real force of nature, very
She's
special.
amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I wanted to give a shout out right now to, yes, we miss Mick, Mikhail, our Stockholm correspondent. And Mick, we hope you feel a lot better. He's got the flu, but we really appreciate Mick's effort on what he's doing on the general music scene. And because he's a real connector. He not only puts on shows in his region, that type of thing, but he has a neat connection with a label out of Japan called P-Vine. And what P-Vine is doing in keeping the legacy of a lot of West Coast AOR music and artists, that's a rarity. But thank God that out in Japan and that side of the world, that there's an arm that's really pushing this forward. And we throw out some kudos to P-Vine for all of their efforts and what they're doing.
With P-Vine and to Mick. I mean, Mick is the professor of West Coast music. He just
Yes.
is.
That's right.
And he has his ear to the ground, and he's got other collector friends there in Sweden with their ears to the ground. And every once in a while, they'll talk an artist into sending them their old tracks that they don't know what to do with. And, one of these guys will get a hold of it, Mick, more often than most. I don't know how he talks these guys into sending their tracks, but he sends it to them, and Mick hears it, flips out, and then gets on the computer, connects to P-Vine, and basically arranges a record deal for that music to be released in Japan.
Yeah.
And then they put together the photography, writes
Wow.
liner notes, and all of a sudden, we got a new release to enjoy and treasure, just because these guys simply love great music.
Yeah. Hey, Rick, a few years back, we went to Stockholm and we experienced Rick or a Mick's handiwork firsthand over there. And I know you were there in Stockholm with us too. Remember that?
Yeah, of course, I remember.
Yeah. It was magical what happened at that performance, that Mick was able to get all these great musicians there.
Yeah, I never thought I'd get to hear Page's music performed live. And not only was it performed live, but it was performed every bit as good as I could have imagined. I mean, the musicians he pulled together were just phenomenal, and it sounded amazing. The mix was incredible, and it really was. It was one of the best concerts I'd seen in quite some time. And we saw that like right before we got home, and a few days later they announced the first case of COVID in the United States. So
Oh
we,
my.
Went down right after that.
We
we
did.
got there and back, in
Mhm.
good timing. Hey, Kim, I wanted to ask you I know that you've been working on a project this year that I think a lot of our Inside MusiCast listeners will be interested in learning about if they don't already. But it's a group called the Players. So tell us about the Players and how you got involved, how that all came to be, and who these guys are.
Yeah, I brought him up briefly. So it all kind of came about with one of the venues that I partner with, Gulfstream Park, which is a racetrack, and they have a race every year like the Kentucky Derby, and they had it going on in Baltimore. It's called Preakness, and they called me about 5 days before the race and said, I need a national. And I mean, that's, you have a better shot at winning the lottery guessing it than you do pulling a national up to Preakness in 5 days.
Yeah.
So I spoke to a lot of people. John Oates was actually going to do it. He wanted to do it, but he was pulled away. He had a family issue and he had to pull away. But anyway, I said, why don't I call some of the Chicago members that I know, former members, and see if they'll just do a Chicago show, because everyone loves the music, and individually grab these guys and see if it'll work. So that's what I did. I kind of started calling around some of the former members that were no longer with Chicago and said, you guys up to fly into Baltimore and doing a Chicago show. And I got a group of them to say yes. And it was, Bill Champlin and Jeff Coffey and Tristan Bowden on that one. And did I say Jeff Coffey and Keith Allen? And so they went up there, and I pulled a horn section from here. We got everyone together and kind of sent them off to do this private event up at Preakness. And they ended up having a great time. The people there went nuts for it. They loved it. And these guys love being on stage. I think Bill and Jeff had never been on stage before, but the rest of them had played together and they had a blast. So I said, you guys want to do it again? And of course, there was some, we had to kind of skeet around the legalities. We had legalities of all those guys being ex-Chicago members. So anyway, fast forwarding a bit, few months, we figured it out. We gave them a name. Tris had just moved over here to Florida. He was kind of working on his own project, so he was going to kind of back away from that. And we grabbed John Paris, who's been with Earth, Wind, and Fire. He still is with Earth, Wind, and Fire, and he loved the idea. So he's been with Earth, Wind, and Fire, I think about 20 years. So anyway, he jumped in. So I said, this just makes a great show, Chicago, Earth, Wind, and Fire, with the ex-Chicago Earth, Wind, and Fire guys, current guys. And they came together, and I did a couple of shows here by me in my venue, and like I had 3 in a row, and they just sold out back to back. Like I couldn't put enough seats in this room, and we marketed them just as their names, instead of we just said Bill Champlin, Keith Allen, Jeff Coffey, and John Paris, and it just sold like that. And people, I couldn't sell anymore,
Wow.
So we realized we had something great, and then they were hired across the state from me. Somebody called and asked about a festival. Do you have a show for a festival? I said, well, yeah, I think so. We had to come up with a name. So Jeff and Keith kind of called me back and said, look, we're just going to go ahead with the Players and our names, and we'll do it, the music of Chicago and Earth, Wind, and Fire, making sure it wasn't noted as a tribute, but the former members of and the current member of, Earth, Wind, and Fire. So I put them over there, and there was no one else on that show except them. They had a couple of openers that were not advertised, and they pulled 4,000 tickets, and they had a blast. So there we are. And now, we've just kind of moved forward. I've created a website, a Facebook page. This is how they're going out, and they're getting some really fabulous offers. Like, I'm thrilled about it. It's just been a really great project. They love it. And, with the conflict of Earth, Wind, and Fire, a little bit, we're skating around their dates. So, so John can be with us. And other than that, like, we're going to have a great 2023 with these guys, and they're having a blast.
Well, that's good that
awesome.
you've got that going. You don't only promote concerts, you create bands.
Yeah, I don't even promote concerts. I produce them really. You
Yeah.
know, people hire me to produce the shows, and then I'm an artist manager first. And then, so I don't really do the agency. Like I have an agent for this band. I'm not doing the bookings, but I do manage and produce and market and sell and promote and those kinds of things. So yeah, it's been, I think that this is, thank God for it, because I think this is where I'm going to lean, you know, for the future. Yeah.
I saw some of the cell phone footage from that initial show at Gulfstream, and I got to tell you, if something sounds and looks really good from a cell phone video, in person it's so much better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know? So if you're impressed by a cell phone video, get off your butt and see that show.
Yeah, these guys are good. I cannot tell you the feedback after these shows, and there's hundreds of people just come here, come there. You know, they just love the fact, and so it ended up being a winner. Thank God.
That's really neat. Well, as we wind up this 2022 year, can you imagine another year gone, guys?
Yeah, I don't know where it
It's-
went.
Yeah.
I
It went
keep
so-
saying it, the sand is running through the hourglass faster than ever right now. You know?
It
Hey,
is.
Just we've talked a little bit about some of our album picks of the year that are going up on our site, and I'm just curious if if obviously you had your picks, but there were a lot of secondary selections that you could have made, and I know I could have. I had a list of about 6 or 7 albums that could have easily been my pick of the year, but I landed on the one that I chose. And Arnaud, what's another album that you could have picked aside from Generation Radio that really sparked your attention this year?
Oh, I guess it would be Claudia Campagnol.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's not released yet, but for what I listened to, it's great. But next year I will go in February to see Silver Fox something. You know the guy from England, I guess.
Oh, yeah,
Sean Lee.
Silver Fox.
Yeah, Sean Lee, and yeah.
Sean.
Mhm.
So it will be my next concert in Paris.
Cool. What about you, Loretta?
Gosh, I really love the Immediate Family album.
Oh,
Yay.
That was an album that I really turned up in the car, in the house. Such a great album, really great. And of course, Judith Owen's album, I finally found it, Come On and Get It. And it was Tessa's Torches song. I don't know if you've ever seen Dinah Shore sing that from the Danny Kaye Up in Arms movie. But I love big band music. I love that sound of the 40s. And I think she did a great job on that.
cool. And Scott, what about you?
Well, mine hasn't been announced, but this will be coming out after the announcement's already made.
Mhm.
Ule Barud, loved his Soul Letters album. He just went in a whole new direction in terms of that gospel vibe that he took. Just really brought a whole new feeling to his music, and I thought it was just really, really special. He's someone of that stature and consistency. It gets harder and harder for them to impress people because they are so consistent, and he eventually becomes his only competition is his own previous album. And for him creatively to take that left turn and do more of that older vibe in his album in terms of the choices, his sound and the instrumentation and the arrangements and everything, very, very special. I thought he really kicked it up and earned it with me. I was so impressed and respected him so much for doing that, because he could have just stayed in the lane and had the same kind of sound from his previous albums and kept going. But no, he's a real artist, man. He took that left turn and took some chances and still, in my books, scoring those touchdowns.
Mhm.
But
Ken, what about you?
Dave Page, again, really, really impressed with that one. Claudia Campagnol, that came in later in the year. Was really impressed by that. but I also really love the Immediate Family. You know, those guys, just the real original gangsters of that, you know, Southern California sound, getting together and putting their own touch to all of those artist songs and their own songs and everything. Very, very special, and love seeing it, you know. So yeah, those were the albums that I was moving back and forth with in terms of my decision. Yeah.
Kim, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, the Immediate Family for me is like a second coming of the Beatles. They're like my favorite outside of the Beatles. I love that session, and it, you know, but I have to give my shout out to Bernie. I stick around with Bernie. I listen to everything that he puts out. I love his vibe. I love his producing. I love his writing. It's one of the, because I'm stuck. I continue to listen to what I enjoy, which is from the 70s and 80s, really 60s and 70s. But Bernie is one of the songwriters that I do listen to everything that he puts out new. And this one, this year, Long Before I Knew You, was, he put that out from old tracks that he had from the 70s, 80s, and I think a little bit of the 90s, from when he was in different bands before he joined Michael in 88. But some of those tracks are I just love them. So he kind of picked up his library and put it into a group, into this album. And I encourage everybody that might not pick up his, newer stuff, to just pick up what he puts out, because to me, he's one of the best songwriters out there. I just love it.
I'll go ahead and second that, because Bernie Chiaravelli, his entire discography is so interesting, and his foundation is the Beatles. He absolutely loves the Beatles, but then his vocals and in his arrangements and in his production, you hear a little bit of so many other influences
right
in his music. A little bit of ELO, a little bit of Petty, a little bit of, you hear everything. He is just so connected, and it all comes through his unique filter. I second.
That's what it is. It's his, it's his vibe. It's definitely his. If I could package everything that I really enjoy about music and put it someplace, it's Bernie Chiaravelli for sure.
Totally agree.
Cool. What about you, Eddie?
Well, I was all over the board this year. I mean, it's, as much as you don't want to admit that you listen to a lot of different streaming sources, from SoundCloud to whatever. I don't know. I look back as to what I was listening to, and I was really exploring a lot. I'll be honest with you guys. I was in an exploring mood. Yeah, did I have my staples and the things that are closest to, as we say, Rick, in Inside MusiCast, the center of our universe, right? And we know which bands those are, or other influences. But this was a real exploring year for me. I really enjoyed keeping up, of course, with Young Gun. I really, this is something really interesting. We've made contact, and I think I'm free to say this right now. We've made contact with an artist that she's from the UK, and she's one of the most soulful singers I've ever heard. She's got a debut album that just launched in this past month, and her name is Mika Millar. And we've made contact, and she's on deck for a chat. And that's in January. And I'm really excited about that. I mean, she's just not good. She's fantastic. And different in the style, we're straying a little bit from our center circle, but as we get more mature, and we, after, what is this, 16 years, we'll be starting our 17th year, right, Rick?
Did you say you're getting more mature?
Yeah.
I'm not. Sorry. I'm disqualified from that notion. Yeah, this is our coming up on our 17th year.
Yeah. You look at 17 years, and I was just looking at the interviews that we've done, and that's over literally over 300, and we're still digging up wonderful talent, classic talent that we could actually approach for an interview, and which leads me to this announcement, which is probably we've posted this already, but our New Year's special will be none other than the talented Dean Parks.
Love him.
Yeah, so Dean, we were able to talk with Rick recently, and that's going to be one of the nicest, insightful shows that we've been longing for a long time, right, Rick?
Oh yeah, he was. I mean, when you prep for an interview like that with somebody who's has such a massive discography and has had such a massive career, it's really difficult to formulate and encapsulate his career in an hour. So, but
Yeah,
we touched on a lot of cool subjects with him, and he's still, he's still going strong. He's still playing and still doing a lot of work. So it was really fun to chat with him about some great stories from his past. Um,
yeah.
but I just wanted to chime in with a couple of my picks that my pick hasn't launched yet on the site, but and I'll save that one. But a couple of albums that I really enjoyed that, and actually for me they're pretty predictable because I like you, Arnaud, and like you, Eddy. Sometimes I fall into the same, and in you, Kim, I fall into the same sort of pattern of artists that I really love, and some of them released some albums this year, and one um, was David Crosby's, and it just came out, and I didn't choose it because I wasn't sure if it was going to actually hit the end of this year or the end or the beginning of next year, but it was a live album by David Crosby with his what he called his acoustic. He had two bands that he toured with, and one was his more electric band, rock band, which had like Jeff Pevar and his son James Raymond and some others on that tour. But then I traveled actually 6 hours to go. I drove 6 hours to go see this show in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, of all places, because that was the closest he was going to come with this particular group. But it was that it was Michael League from Snarky Puppy, Michelle Willis, Becca Stevens, and who else was on that tour with them? But those three core members that were in his backing band for that show, it's a quiet show. It was mostly just acoustic, and it was just gorgeous. And they captured that performance at the Capitol Theater, and they just released that album. And if you buy the CD, it actually comes with a companion DVD of the show too. So I don't know why they did DVD and not Blu-ray, but anyway, that was one of them. I loved Tears for Fears, the tipping, is it the tipping point? Yeah, I loved that. And then another one I loved was another live performance by Jacob Collier. It was his piano solos. And it was so cool because he did like 35 shows in the United States. And the way I was at the Columbus, Ohio show, which was the very last show in his tour. And he explained that at every show, in the afternoon, he would just come up with a tune that he would play, sort of almost ad lib. Maybe he rehearsed it a little bit, prior to the show, but he had a list of songs, and he saved "Let It Be" for his final show, the Beatles' "Let It Be," and it was incredible the way he directs the crowd and gets the crowd involved in harmonizing, and he turns the entire audience into a choir, and it's just all of that's captured on this piano solos album, and it was really beautiful. So those are three of my favorites for the year.
Yeah. Well, this next year in 2023, we're going to be starting off with good momentum.
2023?
20,000.
Really?
It's been a rough year.
2023.
It feels like it's been 20,000 years.
2023. Yeah.
Mhm.
2023 coming at us, and we're going to be starting with good momentum. I think we really want to send out a big thank you to all of our guests for participating with us this year, and we've had a total of 16 interviews, and that's right in the pocket for what we deliver every single year. But me and Rick also want to thank each and every one of you. Kim, Scott, Loretta, Arnaud, Mick, Don, Brian Pearson, who could not make it with us today. But who am I missing here?
Yinka.
Yinka Oyelese and Scott
Yinka.
Sheriff.
Scott Sheriff in Hawaii, and Yinka.
Seems like he's been in Hawaii for like a month or so now.
I don't think he's coming
He's
back.
on vacation now.
He keeps teasing us with all the great video pictures.
Scott
Guys,
has the best gig, yeah.
You guys,
It's really
thank you.
fun it's really
Go
fun to be part of the family,
Yes.
Well, we appreciate
Yes.
you, Arnaud, and thanks for everything you do to help us out too, all of you. It's it's kind of a one big happy family. We've been together for a long time, and if you guys don't mind, we'll just keep doing this for a little while longer.
Yeah, it's awesome. And let me stop and say thank you to Rick and Eddy for
Yes.
having us and keeping this together and doing such a great job, the interviews, and you guys are IMC.
Well, thank you
No, we
very
all are.
much.
We all-
We're
we all
all
do it
working
and
hard at this.
participate, so.
This is nice. This is a fun boat to keep on rowing, you know? So,
Yeah.
Mhm.
no, and and we also thank all of our fans and all of our listeners out there for commenting and contributing. You know, our listeners are not just listeners. I mean, we have so many extremely knowledgeable people that comment, and industry
Oh,
people.
yeah.
But you know, I get a kick whenever you post something and all of a sudden there's Jerry Hay saying, "I love this album," or something like that. You know, I love this. To all of our past guests, keep on being with us and enjoy the ride with us. And in the meantime, everybody have a happy holiday, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and we want to send a warm embrace to everybody. So thank you so much, and we shall see you next year.
Yeah.
Merry
everybody.
Christmas,
Thank-
happy
Thank
holidays.
you all.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to
Feliz
everybody.
Año Nuevo.
Gracias.
Cheers. Some Côte du Rhône.
Yes. I love it, Arnaud.